Are you wondering if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist? Perhaps you've been left with unfamiliar emotions and so many questions. Perhaps you're trying to understand why this has happened to you. Maybe you've been isolated from your friends and your family. You're experiencing now a deep loneliness, self-doubt and confusion. And you might be full of fear about being and interacting with other people, feeling powerless, not in control of any area of your life. In this video, I want to cover 7 things that you might notice if you're suffering from narcissistic abuse and what all victims struggle with. Welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm Elizabeth, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of emotional abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing emotionally from the abuser. I want to help you understand and process what's happening inside you and help you discover the best tools to heal on a deeper level, becoming the best version of yourself. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. This video is not a diagnostic tool. I am not going to say it's for entertainment purposes only because nothing about this behaviour is entertaining. If you believe you are being manipulated, please seek professional help and find someone who can help you break away from the toxic relationship and help you set and keep strong boundaries. Perhaps you're wondering if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist. That amazing romance that you had seems to have crumbled and the fake future has turned to dust. Your heart has been crushed. These emotions are very real and you might find yourself on the bedroom or bathroom floor wondering what happened. Meanwhile, they've moved on, creating more fake futures for their next fairy tale romance. And it isn't until the end of relationships that the majority of people ask, were they a narcissist? Emotional abuse isn't one single event, it's a pattern. And the abuser uses their favourite tools to squash you. Their top tools, or the top tools of a narcissist, are gaslighting and triangulation. They manufacture emotions of fear and shame whilst they take over your life, stealing your power and your strength. The damage caused puts you in a state of confusion. You have no idea abuse is taking place. It's like Chinese water torture. It happens very, very slowly and it turns you insane. And it doesn't leave any area of your life untouched. It impacts you emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. They reprogram you. They take everything from you and then they move on, leaving you with a toddler running your life. But not only are you wondering what has happened, you also believe this is all your fault. In this video, I'm just going to talk about 7 signs that you may have been in a relationship with an emotional abuser, a narcissist, a toxic person. Have you been isolated from friends and family? Perhaps you're overcome with emotions of loneliness and you're questioning everything, full of self-doubt and confusion. So number 1 is loneliness. You feel very lonely and empty inside. Loneliness after being in an emotionally abusive relationship could be for many reasons. You were more focused on protecting the relationship than you were on protecting yourself. There's nothing left of you. It feels like your soul has been sucked out. And during the relationship, you might have been isolated from friends and family. Perhaps the loneliness is due to triangulation. The abuser manufacturing emotions of jealousy and you end up questioning everything. This feeling could be due to the trauma bonding that took place and the fear of not knowing how to function without them. They maneuvered themselves into your life and then into a place of power and then they took control of it. They are so insecure, they actually fear that you would have left them, so they make you believe you can't function without them. And when you're no longer of use to them, they leave without a backward glance. You're left with emotions that are completely unfamiliar to you, living in fear. And those around you are confused as to why it takes you so long to move on. And you might have even hear people ask you why you just can't get over it. Everything you believe to be true is now turning out to be a lie. You've lost everything and you need time to grieve. You're grieving the fake future and the soulmate, the person behind the mask. The loneliness may bring up feelings of being unworthy and they've moved on, leaving you feeling very alone. During the devaluation stage, they told you time and time again what was wrong with you. You may also then come to realize that not only did you lose yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually in the relationship, but you also lost your finances. Perhaps every ounce of you is holding back from trying to re-engage with the abuser. That pain of coming out of the relationship may feel even worse than being in the relationship. On average, people go back 7 to 8 times. And I believe this fear and loneliness is one of the reasons. And perhaps you're trying to understand what happened and wondering why you're feeling like this. Maybe you are discovering this new information and you're asking yourself, if I am the narcissist, and this is so common. Narcissistic behavior destroys lives. You are living in a war zone, only you didn't sign up for a war. Maybe you're overcome with emotions out of the blue, and your thoughts take over your day, your week, your month. Number 2 is feelings of not being good enough. So during the idealization stage, you're swept off your feet with the love bombing. And during the devaluation stage, they're checking in to make sure that you're interested in protecting the relationship more than you're interested in protecting yourself. And they do this by making comments about your intelligence or your abilities, perhaps about your goals and your dreams. And if you question them, you're told that you're oversensitive or that they were only joking. These belittling comments and subtle put downs are followed by idealization, which changes the chemicals in your brain. You find yourself addicted and you override your intuition because they're getting you addicted to the drug of idealization, the drug of themselves. And during that devaluation stage, they withdraw the attention and you start to accept any little crumb they throw your way. They use techniques like triangulation. They may have talked way too much about their crazy exes or about anyone who gives them attention. And they use this tactic to draw you to them. They create situations that made them look popular, so you would fight for their attention. They created these triangles as they love to turn people against each other. They keep them just far enough apart so they can't compare anything, but close enough to ensure that you know they are a threat. They manufacture situations to make you jealous and to question their fidelity. You may have experienced gaslighting, where they convince you that what you were feeling or seeing wasn't real, or that you didn't understand the situation, or the facts that you had were wrong. And they're so believable, you actually question yourself. You may have discovered their lies, and they may have told you that you were wrong or you misunderstood a situation. They possibly told you that you were too sensitive, or perhaps they accused you of having trust issues. And you may have started to question if you were wrong. Did you misunderstand what you'd been told? Perhaps you had forgotten what they told you, or you weren't listening. And this spiral of questioning can go on for such a long time, even after the relationship is over, and it takes a long time to untangle. They use discards to test you, to make sure that you're hooked to them. They might have disappeared or not called when they said they were going to. Then they reappear with a gift or a compliment, giving you back that feeling that you had at the beginning of the relationship, reaffirming that they did love you. You did notice the cracks in their mask. You justified their actions, perhaps because they kept reaffirming this love to you by going back to the idealization stage. Have you been left with unfamiliar emotions and so many questions? Now it's all over. Number 3 is, are you lost without the relationship? They use manipulation techniques to alienate you from others. They sabotage relationships, resulting in you being cut off from friends and family. They may use this in a professional relationship as well, or you may find that you're no longer attending a group or a club. They may have made up stories about people, feeding you with information, making you question your relationship with them. And you're alienated as the abuser can't risk you speaking to anyone who might expose them. They are visible to other people, but the bonding techniques that they've used on you make them invisible to you. You may have experienced waking up to messages from them and messages before you went to bed. You believe this is because you were the first thing that they were thinking about. They love the attention they get from playing this role, and the quicker they can secure you into a relationship, the easier it is for them. Are you questioning everything? Full of self-doubt and confusion, and full of fear about interacting with others, perhaps feeling powerlessness and not in control. of any area of your life. And number 4 is your boundaries were eroded and you don't know who you are. And you were put in a position where you had to decide if you wanted to stay in this fake relationship and compromise your own integrity. What about your charity work or the volunteering that you used to do? Why did you stop doing that? Perhaps you're worried that if you weren't around to supply the attention, they would look for it somewhere else. What about friends and family? Did you start to make excuses, changing your plans to make sure that you are available for the abuser? Someone who has respect for you and showers you with love wouldn't make you feel insecure. In fact, they'd want you to feel secure, and they would do anything in their power to keep you feeling that way. They would want to be with you, love you for who you are, not be manipulating your emotions. Are you full of fear about being and interacting with other people? Perhaps feeling powerless, not in control of any area of your life? Number 5 is your self-esteem is on the floor. The put downs and belittling remarks are masked by fake friendliness, advice, or they may have wanted to offer you a few words of wisdom. These are all designed to make the abuser feel better about themselves, making them feel knowledgeable. They may have used this during the devaluation stage to knock you off the pedestal that they'd placed you on. They wanted to make sure that you were more invested in the relationship. And this belittling behaviour is done to confuse you and to maintain power and control. You work harder to stay up on that pedestal. You may have found yourself walking on eggshells. And they blame shift to disguise their actions, taking the focus off their behaviour because they can never take responsibility. This may sound like, well, if you hadn't done, or I wouldn't have had to do it if you ... Then they wouldn't have behaved the way they did. They wouldn't have reacted in the way they did. When your intuition was telling you that something was wrong and you tried to discuss it, the conversation transferred to you and your behaviour. You may have found your feelings were minimised. By playing the victim, they aren't to blame for their actions, and it serves another purpose. They got supply. They use blame shifting to minimise your feelings, circular conversations that left you feeling confused. Or they guilt tripped you with their pity stories. Remember the stories about the crazy ex? They don't seem so crazy now, do they? You can now understand what that person went through. Who is the real victim? Perhaps you're feeling that you're not in control of your emotions. Number 6 is your energy is on the floor. The cycle of abuse challenges you on every level. It causes confusion, brain fog. It causes stress on your body. You started to wobble on your pedestal. They started to devalue you, belittle you, blame shift, generally create drama. And if you weren't quite hooked up, and this is when you questioned them or pulled them up on something, their response would have been, you're too sensitive, or I was only joking. But this was an indicator for them that you weren't quite hooked, and they would take you back to that idealization stage, work a little bit harder. It's like the frog in the pan of boiling water. The water heated up so very slowly, it got used to it, and now it's being boiled alive. If you discover anything and you're not happy with their behaviour, they're so sorry, they'll never do it again until they do the next time. Or they'll make sure that they cover their tracks better. And when they think you're hooked, they take you to the discard stage. And at this point, this is where you're addicted. You turned your intuition off because apparently it wasn't working properly, and you were prepared to do anything for your drug of choice, which is them. And as the attention you received started to disappear, you accepted any little crumb that they threw your way. You experienced them withdrawing from you. They weren't as available as they had been, and this pattern continues. Each time they phoned, text, or became more present in the relationship, they were hooking you back up and reconfirming that you were the love of their life. You were their soulmate. And this cycle continues until the final discard. And this is when you have nothing left to give them. They've sucked the life out of you. They have drained you of your finances, and they have found a suitable replacement. This replacement is able to give them the supply and attention that they need and the finances. And leading up to this point, they made claims about you, about your behaviour. They may have suggested you were bipolar. They may have criticised everything you said and did, and they covertly compare you to their new supply. Inside you is an inner child trying to get your attention, and you are experiencing withdrawal symptoms from the dopamine and the oxytocin. Dopamine is a hormone responsible for the brain's reward center. A lot of research has been carried out on dopamine pathways and addiction. The same regions light up when we're attracted to someone that light up when someone takes cocaine. The brain regions also light up when someone is addicted to material goods, as well as when we become emotionally dependent on our partners. Too much dopamine in a relationship can underlie an unhealthy emotional dependence on our partners. During the idealization stage, you received a lot of oxytocin, and this is a bonding hormone. It's released when people bond socially. It plays a huge role during pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, promoting a mother-child bonding. It also eases stress and creates feelings of calm and closeness. In a love relationship, your brain releases oxytocin during physical contact, cuddling, sex. Oxytocin is released when someone shows they trust you. These strong bonds are created early on in the relationship. So when they started the devaluation stage, it caused you great pain and confusion. If your reaction is disproportionate to the ending of the relationship, this is an indication you were trauma bonded. When the relationship ended, these bonds are so strong that they made withdrawal so painful. And perhaps you looked for ways of getting the relationship back to where you were at the beginning. You're addicted to the feeling that it gives you. But oxytocin is actually two-faced. So as well as creating bonds, researchers have discovered it strengthens bad memories and it can increase fear and anxiety. The hormone strengthens social memory in a specific region of the brain. Oxytocin also increases susceptibility to feeling fearful and anxious during stressful events moving forward. Perhaps you're trying to understand why this has happened to you. And number 7 is you're replaying the relationship, if only and maybe. All the what ifs and maybes. Questioning the relationship, was it real? And a really painful one, did they love me? Even more painful for me was the realization that he didn't. You may go back over the relationship step by step and question, what if? What if you'd said something differently? Or what if you hadn't said something? And then you might go over the maybes. Maybe if you'd done something differently, would you be here? Maybe if you hadn't done something, would it be different? Eventually, you'll realize that you couldn't have done anything differently. And if you had, you'd still be in the same place, but you would have given more of your soul away. The relationship may have lasted a little bit longer, but it was always going to end. Not only did they create a mask and a fictional character for themselves, they did the same for you. They created unrealistic expectations of you, and then you didn't live up to them. You may have seen the red flags and overrode them. You might have been told that you were too sensitive or that you had trust issues from previous relationships. If you have experienced any of the emotions or feelings described in this video, it's possible that you were in an emotionally abusive relationship. It's possible that you're bound by invisible chains, but you can untangle from them, understand what happened, understand why, reprogram yourself to understand it wasn't your fault, and then take responsibility for what was your fault, create new routines. And understand healing the original wound is crucial. Healing from this type of abuse is so rewarding. You can heal on a level you may never have thought possible, or even realize that you needed to heal. And one day I hope you'll realize that this is a gift. It was a gift in disguise. You can spend a lot of time wandering around with a list trying to discover or diagnose someone to work out whether it was an abusive relationship, whether they were a narcissist, what type of narcissist they were. Hasn't your life been on hold long enough? One of the most important things now is to understand how people make you feel, how someone makes you feel. If you're surrounded by people that make you feel insecure or they make you question yourself, are they the right people? If you found the video helpful in some way, please like and share and consider subscribing to the channel. Sending you loads and loads of love.